All right, Jason King here with the Sic'Em 365 podcast, along with my co-host Ashley Hodge. And I tell you what, we had a great debut show last week with all three of Baylor's signees, and we've got another great night for you tonight with Freddie Gillespie joining us. Freddie, of course, was a key component, one of the stars of last year's record-setting Baylor team. One of the best players in the country in the paint, definitely one of the best in the Big 12, and also a fan favorite. And a guy that Baylor fans are gonna love, for the rest of eternity for not only the contributions he made on the court, but the ambassador he was for the team and the school off of it. And it's a big week for Freddie. The NBA draft is Wednesday, and whether he gets picked or not, he's going to be playing and making a lot of money somewhere next season. And we're excited for him, and we're here to ask him some questions about it. So, Freddie, thanks for coming on. Tell us a little bit about what your past 3 or 4 months have been like in preparation. For you playing at the next level. What have you been doing?
So I was out in Miami. Was there when I flew out there in May. I've been there since actually till this previous Friday. Just working on my game, honestly. Quarantine, a lot of things were shut down, a lot of things were going on. And the way I approached it was, I have 6 months I don't know the time, but I have an indefinite amount of time to just work on my game and get better. And in my head, I thought, if I need to use every single minute and second I can, or to want to improve myself as a player. So I got to do a lot of things, work on, I developed, more of a 3-point shot, extending my range. So that's probably the biggest thing because, I just had 6 months and just had personalized training, just make it happen. And there's a lot of people, I was patient and had a lot of hours in the gym. So
tell me about that process. I mean, you had a trainer you said you were working out with. Were there other guys you were going against? Were you training in a group? What was kind of the routine each day?
Yeah. So a lot of times, they like to mix it up a little bit. So a lot of it was one-on-one. A lot of times it was group training. It was me and a couple forwards, and a lot of times they had me train with some guards, just working pick and roll stuff, a lot of 5-on-5. And in terms of guys that were there, we had guys from some of the high school players coming up, like Jonathan Kuminga, Isaiah Todd, some established players in the NBA, D'Angelo Russell came through 5-on-5, James Johnson with Timberwolves, Jared Colbert, Timberwolves. A lot of Timberwolves guys were down there for a little bit. And then to guys like me, guys like Desmond Bain from the Big 12 was out there, me, and of course I was out there. So guys trying to make that transition from college to pros.
Could you see yourself each day or each week or whatever, like really making strides in certain areas? Was it evident that you were just getting so much better? With anything, when I first got there, playing with that high caliber of players, it's kind of a wake up call. But then, like with anything, started off slow and then starts to pick up some steam, and then sooner or later I look up and I'm like, I'm doing things I'd never really done before with the basketball on the floor before. So then once I saw the initial improvement, then it was just night and day.
Hey, Freddie, the one thing I can relate to that you're doing probably is shooting 3-pointers, because that's about all I do these days.
Yeah.
But, did you keep track? Like, I'll go into the gym and I'll shoot, 53s, and I'll try to keep track of my percentage. What do you strive for? Are you looking to make 70% of open threes? I mean, what's your goal?
So initially, it was simple. They were like, don't airball, right? Just trying, right? So start off with that. Now, it just was still like, try and make, 1/3 of them, and then, 40%, and then, 45 and 50. And then now I'm at around 50. They're just like, you just keep trying to push that number up to, 60, 65, 70.
Yep.
And so it just kind of it's more incremental. So right now I'm shooting for, consistently hitting like 60, 65%. Okay. With no defense. So I want to clarify that.
Yeah, of course. Makes a difference. But so I know you have interviewed with a lot of NBA teams before we started hitting record on this podcast. I think you mentioned 25 to 28 teams that you've talked to and you've been interviewing with. What have you learned in the process? What's are there any funny stories, anything that sticks out as far as interviews that you've had with teams so far? Every team is uniquely different in how they conduct their interviews. That's one thing I have noticed. But some interviews, it's business. Like Charlotte Hornets, it was very business. It was direct or professional. So other teams, they just like to keep it comfortable, keep it light. I've had great conversations with all of them. I think I've asked each team,
what makes a player stick in the NBA, what makes a long NBA career, like what they think. And usually I've gotten different answers to that. There's been some funny questions, like, what superhero do you most compare yourself to? They asked me, who was the most overrated. They asked me, who did I think was the most overrated player in college basketball last year?
Oh, so, what was your answer?
I'm not going to say who I gave. But I didn't want to tell them. I was like, you really want to know? They're like, yeah, and explain why too. So I said, okay. So yeah. I mean, just different. Some of them just different types of questions like that.
Awesome.
Right. When it's all over and the draft, is 3 or 4 days away now. I guess when you're seeing this, it may be a day or two away. But what have they told you about what to expect? What kind of feedback did you get about where you could go? I don't know. I just kind of wondering what your thoughts are heading into the draft.
Oh, in terms of like what happens after the draft, are you saying
what number? Like if you do get, do you feel like you have a good chance to be picked?
Oh, yeah.
So where?
I think for me, what I've looked at this is that a lot of teams they still don't know exactly what they're going to do. Like like I think I was interviewing with the one team last week, and they're like so some of them, like some teams are like, hey, they'll keep it honest and say, hey, look. We either don't have a second round pick or we have kind of decided who we're going to use it on. But if you go undrafted, we want to cut a deal with you as an undrafted free agent. Some of them, they're like, look, we're working on things but we could see you, like getting picked between you and a couple other guys we're still looking at, but we need a big. So it's just, it covers the gamut. But everything changes up until draft. That's one thing I know. One thing I've spoken with teams about. They're like, until they announce the pick. Usually they're frantically trying to figure out still what to do.
Yeah. So you don't really know what could happen. I mean, anything could happen, right? You could.
Yeah.
Will you be disappointed if you don't get picked? I mean, because either way, you're going to be in a camp somewhere. Is that kind of the thought you have? Like what would, how would you react if you do or don't? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think it's cool to get your name called for sure. I think it's just like a cool experience, like a cool milestone, for sure. But I mean, would I be disappointed? I mean, yes and no. I mean, because now, there's so many players that have had, like, either guys like Duncan Robinson or Kendrick Nunn who are, playing very important minutes with the Miami Heat in the finals, undrafted. Yeah. Guys like Alex Caruso, who's an integral part of a Lakers team, undrafted free agent. So, these guys are a guy like, I think Naz Reid at Minnesota, he plays for Minnesota Timberwolves, undrafted free agent, very important player. So, I mean, now it's just so different. I mean, it's just thinking, careers past, guys go undrafted and be better. Guys can go second round and not have it work out because the team situation doesn't work out. So I wouldn't put too much stock into it.
Right.
So how much do you feel Baylor's change of style last year defensively, the no middle defense, how much did that help you? And my follow-up question would be, do you feel like you're more prepared than other bigs because you've played that style, but you've also played zone. So you've got a pretty good understanding of just defensive concepts as a whole.
Yeah, 100%. I think you don't see, like zone, I mean, the NBA is man-to-man defense. That's one thing about it. And I know zone has seen risen in popularity since, in the past 2 years, but still, I mean, I think, the Miami Heat might play the most zone out of any team in the NBA, but with their little 2-3 matchup. I think they run that on 9%, if I'm correct, on defensive possessions. So it's still 91%. They're going man defense. Right. But being able to do that, it gives me a good body of work to when teams want to say, you want to see how it would look playing a man-to-man scenario. Just watch last year. You want to see how we play in a zone scenario. Look at the year before that. So that's cool. But it does prepare me. Switch all the different coverage we have between switching, icing, doing hard hedge, soft hedge, drop coverage, all of that. We did it all. So and it gets some very good guards, some very good forwards. So it definitely prepared me for that NBA level of defense.
Freddie, I was talking as the season was going on last year, every now and then I would run into some NBA scouts at games or talk to them on the phone. And they said one thing that teams love about you, you're very tall and run well and play good defense and have a nice touch on your shot. But they also love the fact that you're very coachable, come to practice with a good attitude, and are a great teammate. And I think that those intangibles, go a long way on any team. They went a long way for Baylor last year and really helped that squad. Have you always embraced that that the whole being a good teammate mantra? Did you really enhance it even more last year at last couple of years at Baylor, and how big of a part of y'all's success was because of that?
Yeah, the whole, the good teammate thing. I think for me, I just always, when I started playing sports in general at a young age, I think with anyone, you play because you want it to be fun. I think it's just more fun, when you have a good attitude and good energy. And I think people respond to that, and it spreads, it permeates throughout the team. So at the end of the day, I want this to be fun, and that kind of is the reason why I come with the good attitude, good energy. And then also, when I started first playing basketball and I couldn't quite contribute that much because I didn't quite, I didn't have the skills of I had the raw talent, but not quite the skills and the IQ yet. I was like, I can contribute, being a good teammate, just having good energy. So that's something that I can control and always have. So that's just kind of something I focused on. And then with this last team, I think it was great because we just had a lot of guys that also embraced that mentality from, the guys that are sitting out, like Adam, Jordan, Jonathan, to, the guys, to Jared and Maceo and Davion, So I think that's just something that we all kind of embraced and had. And I also give credit to the coaching staff for looking for guys and bringing in guys that do have that mentality.
Yeah, it was so neat for me and for all Baylor fans to see you go from a player that was, a walk-on that bet on himself and said, hey, I can do this, to within, 2 years, I felt like you were a leader on that team. Or maybe, I know you don't like to say that we had one leader because all you guys, had your roles and did different things leadership wise, but you were always the guy out in the middle of the huddle right after they announced the starting lineup.
Yeah.
I always wonder, like, what are you yelling in there when everyone's getting hyped and it's like a little
yeah.
What were you saying in there?
It's just like, it would vary. I would just be screaming things like, like some things I can't repeat, but I don't give them a chance to stir them, like just anything I could to get them hyped, just like whatever they would respond to, and they would latch on. I started doing. I think I started that even not last, but the year before. So guys kind of responded, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna make sure that I keep this a thing, and but it was just a lot of times it was loud, so I would just go in there and just scream sometimes, and then they'd be like,
right.
yeah. But yeah, it was a fun thing.
So, Freddie, we want to ask you about this current Baylor team and just break down some of the roster for us, because there's probably no one more qualified to do that than you. But I want to say, when I was talking to a Baylor coach about losing you and what they're going to have to try to bring to the table to make up for your loss, they one of the first things they said is defensively, Jonathan can do a lot of great things. He's super athletic. He can move his feet really well. The one thing I just don't know is, are we going to be able to make up for Freddie's feel for the game, his ability to set picks? Just the little things that don't always, get talked about, during games. And so, they acknowledge how elite you were. They said a star in your role is, what they always say. But help us break down this upcoming season. What does Baylor need to do to win a national championship? What things do you think they need to get better at? And how much pride do you just take in watching this program develop? And, you've had such a big imprint on it. Are you going to be, tuned into every game this year?
Yeah. So I'll start with the first question. What I think they need to do. One, take a bigger step on defense than last year. I think last year officially, I think we were the number 3 defense in the country officially. I think no reason why I can't be number 1 this year. So right. I think everyone, now last year was our first year running that no middle defense, and it worked. So they got a lot of guys coming back just to be more comfortable, and so we got to maintain that as a defensive calling card, that strength, that strangle defense. And then on the offensive end, I think now you got a lot of talent. Having Jerry come back, Maceo, Davion, Mark, and then Trish, and then Tristan. All those guys, talented offensive players. So I think it's just, I think it's just, it's important to share the ball and make sure, who's every night it is to get them going. A lot of games, last year, Devontae at Oklahoma State, that was his day. And we made sure to get him the ball, and he was one of the reasons why we came back. We were down at their place. He was one of the reasons why we came back and won. So I think that'll be a key there too. When you have that many offensive weapons, making sure that you, utilize all of them. And then what was the next follow-up question?
Well, just as far as some of the individual players, like talk about Adam Flagler, Matt Meyer, Jordan Turner, some of these guys, Jonathan, some guys that are, poised to take on a much larger role this year and what they bring to the table.
Yeah. So I've gotten to, talk and hang out and work out, I think, with all of them and play all of them, one-on-one in various ways and, see them in practice. And, Adam, he's special. He's a special player. I mean, that's just, even last year I was looking at him, he can, I think, he can get to the rim. He's got a great stroke on his shot. And, I think so. And he's really unselfish too. I think, and sometimes when I watch him play, I'm like, what, if he could honestly be a bit more selfish. Cause he's just such a talented scorer. So look at that. And I'm excited to see how he comes out and develops this year and shows what he can do this year. Matt, a 6'9" forward. That's a problem. He's just a mismatch waiting to happen. So he's gotten a little bit bigger, which is good for him. But I think for him, I was one thing I think he was looking at was even he told me last year is he says, no, I think I can be a really good rebounder. And I was like, yeah, you're 6'9", you can be. I was like, so I'm glad he added that weight on. And of course, his offensive ability is he has just natural talent. And I haven't been there, but I've heard it's getting polished. And even when I played with him, he was a good passer, good shooter. And I think what people may not know about him is how much he really thinks the game. Because he would go back, and even when we were in quarantine, he was the one that a lot of times I was watching, some of the NBA reruns with, and he would break down things for me and show me things and show me clips and mention stats. So he spends a lot of his time off the court really watching basketball, trying to understand. So I hope for him that comes through this year. And then Jonathan, he's just a workhorse. He's just a guy that came in every day in and day out and tried to get it done. He works out just as much as I did. He wants to study the game, really wants to learn, really wants to get better, wants to figure it out. And I think for him, the only thing for him is just, he just has to get that feel for it because he's got the athleticism, he's got the work ethic. And I think it's just getting that feel. But I think once he finds that feel, he'll be one of the best forwards in the Big 12.
Freddie, I'm not kidding, man. When I look at Jonathan just in street clothes, I get excited. Then I see him work out in practice and just physically, he's so imposing.
Yeah,
I just keep hearing stories about what a hard worker he is, and you lived with him, right? Last year, and he had he would draw a chord on the kitchen table and use salt shakers and pepper. Tell me more about him personality wise, because I tell you, I'm really rooting for this guy because anyone that has that work ethic and that kind personality that he has, I'm going to be a fan pretty quick.
Yeah. So one, he's one of the funniest guys that I've ever met. He has a really funny sense of humor. Or maybe our sense of humor was just aligned more. But he's actually a really funny person. And he was always making me laugh. And he'll send me stuff now that I'll find on Twitter, Instagram, and just stuff he finds funny. And he's just a really funny guy. His work ethic. Some of the goals. I think it extends to just. He wants to get a 4.0 GPA. He wants to be all academic. He wants to be that. I think he's actually. I've had a lot of conversations with him. And I'm like, he's actually a really smart guy. He actually has an understanding of good understanding and grasp perspective on just life in general. So, but in terms of his work ethic, he'll sit there and watch the NBA games and he'll call me and be like, wait, okay, so what's going on here? Or he'll draw plays and like I said with the salt shakers, and we'll go through it time and time again until he tries to understand. He just really wants to be a great player. His desire to be a great player and really reach his max potential.
And he was like that was he like that when he arrived at Baylor? Or did that just develop?
It was like that when he arrived because when he instantaneously. We started working out together. Because we didn't live together at first. That first month we didn't live together, but we started working out together. Right. And if he was in the gym, I was going. And then I'm like, well, if you're going out, then he would go. And I said, I'm not going to let you outwork me, so I got to go.
Yeah.
And then we ended up, going at night and going in the mornings and during midday. And, it's kind of how our friendship grew.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if he has success, then you're going to get a lot of credit for it because he's always quick to say nice things about you and the influence you've had. We're not going to ask you about every player on the team, I promise, but I do want to ask you about Mark Vital because I love watching him play. I want to know what it's like to play alongside him, to practice with him, his motor, especially in games. It's something special, isn't it?
Yeah, so Mark is one of like my favorite players, just like in general. Just even if I didn't play on the team, I think sometimes I'll go back. I think yesterday I was watching, rewatching. What game was I watching? I know it was right there on tip of my Arizona game. I was watching Arizona.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think Mark had like a box plus minus like 20 that game or something crazy. But yeah, just watching him. So. And, I think why I think it resonates with me just watching his game is because, he'll never cheat you, right? He'll never, with him, you don't have to ever worry about effort or hustle. He'll never cheat you. And that's what he sets the tone for the team. But also, when you play with someone like that, it's just impossible not to bring your best effort because, when someone like that is bringing it, you just feel like you're letting them down by not bringing your best effort.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that he's just so gifted at it, to the point where I'm like, man, he just, every game in and game out, he just comes ready to play on 100. And then also with that, he's just unselfish. I'm glad. I think I saw something where on Twitter they highlighted his playmaking ability, his passing, which I always knew was a good part of his game. But I think that'll be key. His ability to be a distributor and be a playmaker. That's also like another one of his gifts. But I think that's kind of overshadowed by how good he is at rebounding and defense. That's just kind of like people don't even realize that about him. So I'm glad that's getting attention. I think that'll be a big asset this year is that ability, is that his playmaking ability along with his defense and rebounding.
Yeah.
Freddie, I want to ask you about Davion Mitchell because I know Jared Butler's on I think it's the Kuzi watch list, and Maceo Teague's on the Jerry West watch list, and Mark Vital's on maybe the Karl Malone watch list. We're getting some guys on recognition, for being at the very top of their game. But Davion's a guy that I think's been really overlooked preseason wise. He didn't make the All Big 12 team. He wasn't even honorable mention. He was an All Big 12 returning performer from last year. And, I just wonder, are people just that ignorant as to what a good college basketball player looks like? Because he's a good offensive player. Yeah. He's a tremendous defensive player. What's it like playing with him? And do you think he's just a guy that, is very undervalued by the rest of the nation?
Yeah, 100% undervalued. I think I saw some of those watch lists and I thought, where's Davion? Honestly, I think a lot of it might go into it. I can't say for sure, but I'm kind of suspicious if it's like, okay, they already have two guards, so we can't give them a third one on the same team. I don't know if that's going to play into it. But even then, he's a phenomenal two-way player. I know his defense gets highlighted, but his offense is pretty good too. Right. And I think he's good and he's fun to play with because he just locks players up. He really shuts down guys. And when the guard is bringing the ball up the court, it's hard for him to get to the offense because he's the initial point. He kind of starts it all every single possession. But his day will come. For sure, 100%. I think for him, he's also someone that works hard, always trying to get better. And I think if he's okay starring in his role. He's another guy who stars in his role, and he'll like I said, preseason awards are cool, but he'll if he does what I know he's capable of, then he'll get to the awards that he deserves at the end of the season.
Yeah, I saw one.
Go ahead, Ashley. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I saw one list. I think there was the 20 top point guards, and I want to say Desonemu from Illinois was on there, and Colin Gillespie from Villanova, and the guy from Arizona State, Remy Martin, and then Gonzaga's, either maybe Jalen Suggs was on there. But then, they got Marcus Garrett in the Big 12. You've got the Aiken guy that transferred from Harvard that's going to be at Seton Hall. Yep. So my point is, and then obviously a lot of other good point guards in the Big 12 as well. Miles McBride for West Virginia and some guys, the Texas Tech, Kyler Edwards, and and of course the Texas guys, Matt Coleman, Austin Reeves at Oklahoma. But he's going to have opportunities to shine very early in the season against these players that are on these the top of the list. So I think he's going to have that option.
I think to be frank, also, a lot of those guys, on the other watch list, when I look back, I'm like, Davion plays a part in them being on there because he's able to I think he was led the team in assists, if not was second,
right.
And so that too, and then also his ability to cover for mistakes on defense too, right. And be that that's that doing that, like getting guys out of some sticky situations, including myself. Doing all that, I mean, it made way for, guys like Mark, Maceo, and Jared to be on those watch lists.
Yeah. And I'll say this, it's funny, Freddie, he's not a media member, but he thinks like one or seems to know the business well, because what he said about, Butler's getting a ton of love, rightfully so. Mark Vidal's been around a long time. People know what he can do. He's getting a lot of attention for that. Maceo T had a great year. He's been in the headlines a lot during the offseason because of the NBA draft, decision he had to make. And all of a sudden, Davion just kind of gets forgotten. I don't even know if it's intentional disrespect.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people are filling out these lists and they think, oh, we've already got a Baylor guy, and some of them have two, and we can't have three, and they just kind of move on.
Yeah.
But what I do know is that if you were to poll other point guards or guards in the Big 12 and ask them who's one guy you hate to face, he's going to be right there at the top of the list. Right, he'll get his due. Jared, sorry, Freddie, I wanted to ask you though. We've talked about your story so much the past couple of years, and it's so inspiring. But I wanted to know when you really did start to take that leap at Baylor, kind of probably about maybe 10 to 12 games into your junior year. What happened? I mean, because I remember you got in a couple of games early as a junior, and people were thinking, maybe he's a 5 to 8 minute a game guy for this year. But all of a sudden, man, it was just like boom. I mean, it just clicked, and of course, a lot of it was getting an opportunity. But what really caused you to take that quantum leap when you did?
Yeah, I think so. When Tristan kind of went down, I think a lot of people counted us out as a team. So I think people that probably didn't take us seriously probably didn't expect too much out of us, especially expect a lot out of me. So it's kind of the mentality of, okay, I know I put the work in. What I've got to lose, and I just being able to play free like that. Being able to just having that underdog mentality, being with other guys that have that underdog mentality. I think it just was the perfect storm in order to just let my game really kind of shine through.
Yeah. With as well as you've played in your story getting out there, what's it like kind of when you go back home and to Minnesota, or even just when you talk to some of your friends and former teammates from high school, how proud of you are all those people, and how much buzz are you hearing from them?
Yeah, I think, my phone, I think I got a couple of texts today and yesterday, guys were like, so cool, just everything you've done. Good luck this week. Like, really excited about it. I think for me, I don't get back home that often. So, I forget that, I'm from here, and that, our games are televised nationally, not just in Waco. So a lot of times I'll go, like, I think it was the Walmart a couple of days ago. With my mom, and I was asking one of the guys, I had my mask on, and one of the guy helping me, he said, what's your name, by the way? I said, oh, Freddie. And I said, Freddie Gillespie. He's like, oh, so cool to meet you, man. Like, oh, that's so great. Like, hey, like, great story, all this. And I just forgot, like, oh, yeah, I guess, okay, you wouldn't, like, you might know who I am. So just things like that, and I think just a little buzz and the encouragement. People are super supportive because it's not your common story. And I'm really appreciative of it all.
Yeah.
So Freddie, you wouldn't answer the question of who's the most overrated player, and I don't blame you for not answering that question. But who is your toughest opponent in a game over your career? Does anybody come to mind as far as, guys that you really gave you a great challenge?
So an individual player?
Yeah, individual.
Okay, individual. I would say Brandon Clark on Gonzaga when we were in that March Madness tournament that last year. Last year.
He got up off the ground pretty fast. His second leap was really hard to stop. Wasn't it?
It was that, and it was also that because also he was just so. I know on that team, like everyone was talking about, Rui Hachimura.
Yeah.
But Brandon Clark, I saw him and I was like, yeah, this dude's gonna be pretty good in the
right.
NBA. He was just also crazy efficient too. With everything he did, he just seemed to make the right decisions and the right reads. He didn't seem selfish, and he played hard on both ends of the court. So I just knew, I said, he may not be the star right now, but I was like, he'll have a good NBA career.
Yeah, yeah. And were there any personal grudges that you held? Was there a fan base that heckled you, or like were some words said, maybe behind the scenes that got you really fired up? Were there any teams that you're just like, I'm ready to go tonight? Was it just a mindset of everybody's equal?
Yeah, I think there's one that probably really got under my skin was Texas Tech. I think that was a fan base that really always got to me. But I was just, they're just a root. Kansas is big and rowdy, but they're just like rowdy. There's just a lot of energy there.
Right.
Texas Tech. I mean, they're aggressive, and I think I was there. I was just there sitting on the bench one time, right? I mean, I wasn't even like, I was just like, right, and I'm just not even just saying anything, and they're just, throwing like insults and making mocking me and teasing me. I think I just got up and went to the locker room. I was just chilling here then. So I was like,
so, yeah, that was such a great win in Lubbock for you guys this past year, and you mentioned Kansas. Winning in Lawrence. Does Scott Drew, any funny Scott Drew stories about him celebrating extra hard after certain wins? I mean, has he ever just gotten completely crazy after a game?
Yeah. So I think, Coach Drew always tries to set the tone with the energy before the game and after games and all of that. And I think, so I mean, I think before a game, probably. So Kansas, that he celebrated, he was happy. But I remember it was Big 12 tournament. I was a walk-on at the time. It was my redshirt year.
Yeah.
And the energy, so guys, he thought the energy was a little bit too flat. We were in the locker room, and then they start playing like blaring music, and then everyone starts like kind of dancing, and then Coach Drew just runs into Mario and throws him into the chairs in the locker room. Mario just goes tumbling down, and I remember seeing that. I was like, okay, like this guy, I mean, he takes game time really seriously. Like he really wants a high energy of environment during game time. That's why crazy is probably the craziest Coach Drew story I have in terms of being hype.
I love it. So when you sign your first contract, are there any dream purchases that you want to make? I mean, is there anything on your wish list that you're like, hey, I put in all this hard work. This is what I really want to buy.
Yeah. Okay. For me, let's see. I probably want to get a new car because my old one's it's on its last legs. It's barely.
What are you driving?
A 2008 Honda. 2008 Honda Accord.
Mm-hmm. Oh, those are good cars though. Those are cars that'll last.
Yeah,
so you worn that one out though.
Doesn't have much left in it though. So that, and then then I think this was the only thing that comes to mind right now. I'm sure when if I was to see the money, more things might come to more things might pop into my head. But for right now, that's the one thing I can only really point out that I would want.
Well, as a financial advisor, I'd make sure you save first. It's pay yourself first. That's the best advice I can give you. Yeah.
So
you're the one asking about lavish purchases, Ashley.
True.
Freddie, what are your interests outside of basketball? I remember you sharing a little bit of that information with me when I talked to you earlier in the year. But what are things you're passionate about, or things you might want to do someday once your playing career is over?
I think one thing I want to, if my playing career is over, I want to be involved in the community. I think so for me, like growing up, before I showed any semblance of being a professional basketball player, my mom, her whole kind of approach was just kind of, get a little taste of everything. So growing up, I was kind of in Spanish club, chess club, what else? I mean, she had me, I went to a summer camp thing where, I did like a forensic, I did like a little CSI forensic thing. Mm-hmm. She got me in karate. So a whole bunch of different types of things. And, by no means, none of them really stuck. But it's still just having that experience, being able to do them. I think, helped form me as a person and kind of made me, a multifaceted person, able to, walk in different circles. So I think that's one thing I want to do is give that opportunity to other people. And maybe people that didn't have that growing up, because it meant so much to me. So that's one thing I would do. And then also things I'm interested in. Chess. That's one thing I like because I was exposed to that as a young age. I think, a debate, that's one thing I always love to do, as you can ask any of my teammates. So, foreign policy is always interested in me. So things like that.
That's what you mentioned to me is foreign policy. I remember you telling me about that. Also, when you're a star athlete in any sport, especially at the college level and beyond in the pros, I mean, you have the ability to reach so many people. You're on a pedestal, and so many people are kind of watching you and looking at what you do. Is that a position you really embrace and like in terms of being a role model and being able to influence kids and things like that?
Yeah, I think it's always good to be able to impact lives. I think whether you're a superstar athlete or not, I don't want to get too philosophical, but just kind of making the world just a little bit better place. Yeah. I think athletes kind of have with the larger platform have a bigger identity, have a bigger I think responsibility to do that. But I think, just again, I realize that, people are always watching, even if you don't know they are, and, you might mean more to someone than you might even know. That's something I take really seriously and something that I try to embrace. And, I think it's something that kind of comes with the job. So, and it's something I do enjoy though, too.
Yeah.
So Freddie, you mentioned chess. Have you watched The Queen's Gambit on Netflix?
I have, but I heard it's pretty good though. I saw it. I was like, oh, this might be good. But I haven't watched it yet. And I saw it got some good reviews. So that might be something I do. I might have to watch during this.
If you like chess, I think you'll like that. So I wanted to ask you about the spiritual side. I watched a video of you, and I think it was one maybe with Rick Barnes on it. Did you do one with Rick Barnes?
Yeah, he was on there. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. FCA. And I know our listeners always, love the personal spiritual side. And, how did you grow spiritually at Baylor? And what is one habit that you might have picked up in Waco or just being around, Scott Drew and some of the coaches? I know, Christianity is a big part of the culture. Is there a habit that you picked up that you're going to carry with you for the rest of your life?
Yeah. So I think, it's just, spiritually growing. I think, one, I think, when I think kind of one thing I noticed is that, when you're closer to home or more around your parents, you kind of, rely on their faith a bit more. You kind of lean on their faith. But, when you go away from home kind of on your own, that's when you kind of develop your own. So that's kind of the main way, just being that far away from home and just being on my own kind of that way. And maybe it's the main thing that that there is spiritual growth. In terms of the one habit that I picked up at Baylor, one thing I always so growing up, I never really was a fan of like Bible study. I never really went to Bible study like that. Right. But when I was at Baylor, I realized for Bible study, the actual church service, like I actually like Bible study. I think it's you can, it's more personalized. I think, you can take a more in-depth approach at it. You can ask questions and discuss it and talk about it and different things like that. So that's one of the things that I really I was exposed to at Baylor. So something that I probably would keep going forward.
What was that always led by Scott Brewer? Or who led those studies for the players?
I think so. A couple of times. So I think for me, one thing I did was that it wasn't so. From not so much from the ones that we did with Pastor Brewer, but I think sometimes JD, we would just sometimes me, JD, King, we would just get together and just just talk about different things, and JD was like just have a conversation. What do you guys think? What do you guys just have? I think just having organic conversations with just other people and kind of just hearing advice, references to things. I know Jackson did it a couple times too. They did this past summer, so. Just things like that, I think, is something that I actually came to enjoy.
Freddie, anything you're going to really miss about Waco in Baylor, whether it's a restaurant you guys always went to or just things you used to do on a Friday or Saturday night during the off season, people on campus that might not have been involved in athletics? What are some just kind of staples, things that became staples in your life for the last 2 or 3 years that you'll miss?
Oh, yeah, there's a couple. Let me think. Let's see. Honestly, what I might miss is Baylor football games. I think I'm going to miss the Baylor football games. Doing the tailgating for those when we have recruits and things like that. And I think I think the Baylor football game atmosphere is really fun. I think it's I think they do a good job, just the whole having all the boats there and all that. When College game day came this past year, that was really cool. And I think the Baylor football experience is actually they do a really good job with it. I think it's electric, and it's actually it's a fun time and fun energy, and that's one thing I probably missed the most.
Yeah. Do you have any comment on who the quarterback should be for this Baylor football team? That's the big controversy on the message board right now.
I gotta say, I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna say, ride my man Charlie Brewer. I'm gonna say, I see that, and I say I might ride him to the end.
All right,
awesome. He did a lot, so I gotta go with him.
I agree. Well, hey, Freddie, we really appreciate you coming on and not just being accessible tonight, but when it comes to being a media member, I mean, you were as good as it gets in terms of just giving us great quotes and always being friendly, and we appreciate that. And man, we're excited for you Wednesday night and all that lies ahead. And hopefully we can check in with you, every 3 or 4 months just to see how things are going. But thanks for joining us tonight, and again, thanks for everything you've done for the basketball program the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for having me. I've always want to talk with you guys, and if you want to talk again, just let me know.
We will, and if you're watching this tonight, please subscribe to this podcast, Sic'Em 365. It's available on Apple iTunes, It'll be a huge help for us. I can tell you we'll be here every week with a different interview, current players, former players, media members, and then also after every game, we'll be doing a post-game podcast as well. So probably multiple times a week during the season. So until next week, this is Jason King for Ashley Hodge with the Sic'Em 365 podcast.
Field of 68 Network with Rob Doster and Jeff Goodman.
I can't believe I forgot that. Very important, Field of 68. My guys.
Hey, we got to say also before we leave that if an NBA team wants a 50% three-point shooter with a 7'6", 7'7" wingspan, who can defend, who can knock down mid-range jumpers, 80% free throw shooter, they look no further than Freddie Gillespie, right?
Appreciate you. I'll put that out there. Thank you.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Freddie.
No problem.
Right, stop recording. Let's see here. Oh, Jeff's all right. All right. Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate you doing this. That was awesome. All right. Good luck to you, man. I'll be praying for the right fit for you on Wednesday night, whoever that might be.
Me too.
All right, man. Have a good one. Take care.